Well, studio, we welcome to the program Flip Weinberg, a retired former assistant district attorney and former president of the Mississippi Prosecutors Association. Flip, thanks for coming in.
Oh, glad to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
All right, so we wanted to have you in to discuss this situation with James William III, convicted of a double murder of Cindy Mangum Williams and husband James Williams Jr. by Mr. Williams' son, James Williams III. He was paroled. I think he served 18 years, if I'm not mistaken.
That's about right. That's about right.
And then arrested for a DUI just this past weekend. This is after a murder conviction. I guess, what can you tell us about the case? You had some involvement in that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was one of the prosecutors involved in it. It was a gruesome murder case and a pointless murder case, and we tried him, and he, as I told Paul Gallo a few months ago when we first talked about this, he just sat there and had this really hollow look to him, as if nothing had happened, really. I mean, and as if something did happen, it didn't affect him at all. And so it was just kind of a mission for me to get him locked up. And so we did. We got him sentenced life without parole, I think, and of course, since then, the Supreme Court came out with a decision that James was 17 at the time, so they came out with a decision that said you can't automatically sentence persons under 18 years of age to life without parole. You have to take into consideration numerous factors. You can still do it, but there are only certain circumstances under which you can. And so, but he got that sentence, and then he came up this year for parole, and the parole board, in its wisdom, chose to let him out. I talked to a parole board member afterwards, and that I knew, and she told me that it sounded like a bunch of, frankly, bleeding heart type stuff. How his childhood was bad, and he was mistreated as a child, and things like that. And I said, well, look, he had a trial, he had a lawyer. All of that, if it mitigated what he was supposed to get, was available at that time. The parole board didn't need to base their decision on that, but he had one of these jailhouse conversions where he suddenly became, I think he became some type of a preacher there in the jail, in the prison. And obviously he wasn't a Baptist,
right?
Because he has been arrested for DUI.
Well, so it just seems to me sort of odd. I mean, I get it. You're 17, you're a minor, but you commit these kinds of heinous, gruesome crimes, as you described it, and you serve for 18 years, and then you're out. How could he not be still a menace and a risk to society?
Well,
Flip?
As far as I'm concerned, there's no way. I mean, it takes a certain level of depravity to do what he did in the first place. And you don't get rehabilitated from that. I mean, that's still within you, in my opinion. Yeah. And it's just one of those things where they decided to show mercy on him. I don't think he deserved it. I don't think any murderer does. I think they ought to be in jail for as long as their victim is dead, which is the rest of their life.
Well, I mean, the problem, of course, is you're showing mercy to one individual, but you're putting at risk everybody else in society because this person is free and not behind bars.
Well, this is a perfect example of it. He ran a car into a ditch, from what I read. But what if he'd run into another car and killed somebody?
Right.
I liken it to the situation with the illegal aliens. If you stopped them at the border and didn't let them in at all, then they couldn't come into America and commit a crime. Well, if you could have a prisoner and keep him in prison, he ain't going to come out there and victimize the public.
All right. So if you're convicted of a DUI, does that not somehow violate parole here? Shouldn't that? And what does that mean? Can't we arrest him, lock him up?
I've been out 4 years since I retired. I think that just drinking the alcohol is enough to revoke him.
Okay.
And so I don't know why he wouldn't be revoked and sent back to prison.
Have you heard anything to that effect?
No. And in fact, all I know about is what Alex told me and sent me that article that I read. I don't have any connections to get that information.
Yeah. I mean, is it just possible we have a parole board that seems to be a bit progressive in their thinking and a little too sympathetic to criminals and not enough to victims?
Well, I don't know how they are with other types of cases, but murders are special to me. I mean, I did a lot of them in 40 years of prosecution, and they're special. And again, if it's murder. Now, I mean, there are killings that are manslaughter and they're spur of the moment things and not premeditated, not even intended in some cases, where there might be some redeeming qualities to the person who committed them, but not murders, not premeditated murder.
And that's clearly what this was.
Oh yeah, gosh, yeah.
9 times shot, I believe.
That's what I read. I don't remember that. That's been 20-something years ago.
Yeah.
I don't really remember the number, but I mean, yeah, it was gruesome. I mean, both of them. I think he killed his dad, and then his stepmom walked in, and he killed her.
I got you. Well, what we understand is that it's unclear when a decision might be made, but receiving the DUI, committing the DUI, even though it's a misdemeanor, it could certainly lead to his parole being revoked.
Well, as I say, I think that it's a deliberate violation just to even be drinking in the first place. So I don't think he should be allowed to stay out.
Are you concerned, though, that we're seeing a bit of a trend here with respect to granting parole?
We've been seeing a trend in Mississippi that's alarmed me since at least 2014, when the legislature adopted House Bill 585, and they lightened the penalties for a number of crimes. Grand larceny went from 500 to 1,000. In other words, you could steal somebody's riding lawnmower, and if it wasn't the day they bought it, it probably depreciated in value to where it was under 1,000, and it wouldn't be a felony anymore. It's just incredible what they did back then. But I mean, to me that was, if not the start, it was the focal point of a change in philosophy in Mississippi. And of course, I never thought we'd see any form of legalized marijuana either. So you just never know.
Well, there's been some other issues as well, surprises, I should say, in some of the parole being granted. But, my bigger concern, Flip, is for nonviolent offenses such as drug possession and so forth, we seem to be all over locking those folks up. But we have a situation like this, and 18 years later, they're out. So, I mean, this individual's, he was 17 at the time, so he's 35 years old?
I guess, maybe more than that. Because that was, what's it been? He's probably
under 40,
36 or 7.
Yeah.
I just am alarmed at, as you described, a trend that I'm seeing, because in all of law enforcement, I mean, in all areas of law enforcement, they seem to relax the standards. And when they did 585 back in 2014, one of the reasons was because it got a lot of people out of prison, or kept a lot of people out of prison, and that saved the state a lot of money. But it doesn't save the victims of their crimes anything.
Yeah.
It endangers people, and so it's just a shame that they let it go like that.
So is it not a requirement when parole, such as for Williams here, is being considered, that case is before the parole board? Are they not supposed to at least have a discussion, interact with the families of the victims?
I think they probably do, and I know that I talked to Zeno Mangum, who was the son of the mother, stepmother, and I mean, the family is still devastated over this, and he did everything he could do to keep them from letting him out.
Okay.
And I wrote to all the parole board members, and then again talked to the one that I knew. But I mean, it's apparently they don't. If they talk to family members, they're not coming away from it moved by what the family members say.
Clearly, because
if they were to spend a lot of time with Zeno, I know that they would just see how devastating this was to the family. Yeah,
clearly. I mean, it seems to me like they ought to have some major influence in decisions like this. And honestly, their safety seems to be a bit at risk when you think about it. Heck, those involved in the case.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, it's, how can you possibly trust someone who committed a crime? And let's also point out, forced a 15-year-old boy to help dispose of the bodies
Well,
in body bags.
I was fixing to say that I would be, if I were that kid, I would be scared to death of him. It would make me not sleep well at night to know that he was out.